of this event, the first words that come to mind for me are, don't forget to tip your servers.
For sure.
For sure. And
Yeah.
I have not been involved
Can
nearly as
I
long.
interrupt you real quick? Where's Howard?
Howard?
Isn't Howard supposed to be here?
Who's Howard?
I thought this was the Howard Stern podcast.
Oh, my gosh. I'm sorry.
It's not?
We're rated G.
Oh, God. What am I going to tell my
All
family?
Clean.
Okay.
Appropriate.
I'll make the most of it.
Appropriate of it.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. But truly, when I think of it, those are the words I hear echoing. Don't forget to tip your servers.
You're good. You got it down
Just
well.
about, right?
Yeah.
The notorious Bill Girding.
Well, Bill was a generous host.
Yeah.
He made sure that we were well fed and well hydrated.
Well said. Yes.
And,
to keep things moving, thinking, progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was always his kind of final comment whenever the meeting was starting to break up, that
Yeah.
make sure that you leave something for the server.
Yeah.
Well,
Every
we were there
time.
because of Bill. I mean, that's, you can give everybody credit in the world, but if it wasn't for Girding being here and his famous Market Street chili, none of this would have happened.
Yeah.
No doubt about it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Today on the Thrive in Wabash County podcast, I am joined with co-founder Bob McCallen and longtime standing event committee member Todd Titus. And we're here talking about the Wabash Cannonball Chili for Charity Chili Cookoff, which also has to be the longest named charity event in Wabash County. But we're here to talk about the impact that events such as this can have. But truly, this is a remarkable event that started at the very, very grassroots level. And maybe I wasn't even born. I'm just kidding. The first cook-off. But how did this come to be? I think a lot of us show up, we know the rules, you pay $5, you taste chili, it all goes to charity, and stop. Most of the public has no idea the genesis of a tradition in so many households.
My take on that is it started a couple years before it became Chili for Charity, because Bill was always bragging about his chili. There were a few chili contests around it. The one I can remember in Wabash, it started it all for Mark Shelley and I, and Dead Man's Chili was the Elks. And their guest judge was going to be Sammy Terry, if you remember Sammy Terry from Channel 4, Scary Movies on Friday night.
Yeah.
So Mark and I wanted to kind of suck up to who the judge was going to be, so we named our chili Dead Man's Chili. And that's the first time I remember competing in that and having the conversations with Bill. And then I think Bowman started some at the Kettle. I don't think those were officially Chili for Charity. They were just fundraiser, have a good time, small crowds.
Yeah.
That was kind of the genesis, in my opinion, of kind of where it all began.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know where the idea, probably from Bill.
Well, my first introduction to it was, I think it was probably in the late spring or early summer of 2003. And my wife and I were having dinner at Market Street. We were sitting on the east wall, in a booth on the east wall, and two drinks show up at our table that we didn't order. And before we could say anything like, where did these come from? Girding is on one side saying scoot over, and Bowman is on the other side saying scoot over. So they had this idea that they wanted to have this cook-off. And like Bob said, Bill was a veteran of these events. And Bo had been to Texas visiting a relative. I think it was his mother-in-law. Mm-hmm. And in a small town in Texas, and he went to their local cook-off. And it was a small town. And I believe he said they raised like $2,500 for charity with that event. Those two got together, I've heard him say, late night, and and they cooked
Bill
this.
only came out at night, didn't he?
Yeah, I think and they cooked this idea to have this cook-off, and they wanted to have it at Paradise Spring. They wanted to know how to go about doing that. So I got them the application, because there's an application you have to fill out, a special event application. I got Bill that, walked him through it, told him he needed to come to the park board, present his idea. He did. He got approved. And that's kind of where it started from my perspective.
We're going to pause real quick. Kim, the editor, somebody's beeping, and it's not Todd and I because we turned ours off.
I thought I did.
Oh, come on.
How do you turn the...
I don't know how, we don't know how to work an
power
Android.
off. Okay, let me do this.
Oh, he's got a regular smartphone now. Last time I was with him, he still had a flip phone.
So,
He finally-
I don't know. I can put it in the door.
Wait, is the sound off at least?
It's all, the sound is down completely,
Oh.
and I don't know how to turn it off, which is
Come on,
what I usually
SpongeBob.
do.
Get it together.
That's me.
That's you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Just don't let me
Oh, we
forget.
got to start all over now.
Good. I didn't like what you
Take
said
two.
anyway.
Take two. Where's the hook? Pull him out. Pull him out.
Yeah.
I'm bad. I did
Gosh,
it.
I've missed you too. I knew this was going to be so good for my soul. Back when Girding came to you and asked you to help go about getting the process of getting the application filled, you were the Wabash City Park Superintendent at that
Right,
time, correct?
right.
So that's why he also knew, other than you being a friend, you would know, how do we have this
Right.
happen at one of our city parks?
Right.
Yeah. And so when do you think that was again,
I
2003?
think, well, yeah, it was the year of the event, because I remember while they're sitting there talking, I'm thinking, I wonder when they want to do this, because we had I think we had something just about every month, including September at that time, which still leaves room, but you're hoping they don't want it on the date that someone else has already
Right.
got, and I don't know if they even knew a date then.
Well, I'll tell you, I think Bill in his heart knew it's going to be the third Saturday in October because that's what it's always been.
It has been.
It has,
And for some reason, that was Bill's, that's when you do chili. You cook chili late October.
But also, I remember there was talk about the 1812, Mrs. Cinewell 1812 is the week before, and the Cassie, which you can expand on what Cassie is.
We'll get back to Cassie.
Yeah.
We'll get back to
But
Cassie.
their new year starts like October 1st. And one of the smart things that Bill did that he knew about was that the Cassie people go around and they collect points, and they hit the same ones every year. They kind of have a route they follow. Yeah. So you don't want to schedule your event on one of those dates.
Sure.
So that's kind of how it arrived at that.
You know more about that than I do. I don't know anything about how that happened.
Yeah, I do know that part of it. But October, well, I just think the time of the year had a huge amount to do with the success of the event.
Well, and after the first couple of years, we were not real excited about the third month of October because I think those first 5 years, we had every kind of weather you could have.
Oh, yeah, that third week can be.
It was the second or third year, and I remember we had the big tents in the middle for the corporate sponsors. Do you remember that, Todd?
Oh, yeah.
We had rain, sleet, wind, and snow.
That was the second year.
Second year.
Yeah.
And so I know for the first couple of years, we're all kind of, well, maybe we should change it. Of course, Bill wasn't going to have anything to do with that.
Right.
Bill was, in his mind, it was the third Saturday in October. And we stuck it out, and frankly, overall, it's been a historically pretty doggone good day.
Yeah, It has been a really doggone good day, as you would say. Watching this committee move through the years and still stay true to its roots of what the Chili Cookoff was created to be has always impressed me. And it actually has stuck with me in other decision making. I've sat on the committee. I was lucky enough to get to sit next to you jokers for a couple of years.
And you're saying you learned something from
and
those
I
meetings?
did. People would come to the committee and have suggestions. We think you should add this to the event. We think you should add this. And you would always say, we are a chili cook-off. That is at the heart of who we are. We're not going to add all these other odd elements that detract from the root of what we are. And so you did stay true to that. And so when I've served on other event committees or pop-up things and ideas come like that, you think, no, what is the root of what we are? And that's what we're holding true to.
Yeah.
And so you were all gathering as friends, but it totally led to something majorly impactful.
It's interesting you say that too, because I think as we got more success and it became a bigger event
Yeah.
and people were looking forward to it, that's when we really started getting some outside influences saying, hey, maybe you should do this or maybe you should do that. And I think you're right that we never deviated from that.
Well,
This is
even
who we
within
are.
the committee, there were suggestions that something that we needed there or something we should do there. And then it was like, okay, well, then who's going to take charge and do that?
Mm-hmm.
And generally, the person who brought it up sort of just kind of slumped in their chair because, you know, they weren't going to do it.
Sure.
And
Ain't that just the way? Ain't that just the way? A lot of suggestions on what you should do
Yeah.
and what you should do.
yeah. And Christine, I think it's good to point out that Bob and myself are no longer on the committee.
Right. You're OGs, though. You were some of the early lifeblood that really poured into.
I don't remember a time when Todd wasn't involved. I know you talk about 4 founders, but I would link Todd in that. I think there were 5 people that were kind of having the conversations about getting the thing off the ground. And Todd, you've been there from the go.
Well,
And Bowman, I like to give the guy credit. I think the best thing that Steve ever brought to the committee was his wife, Nancy.
Amen.
Who I think is still a
Agreed.
member.
well, but I'll tell you, those 2 guys were in the perfect positions with their businesses to get this going.
Like you're talking Bill Girding and Steve Bowman.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
They had a loyal customer base that they had daily customers, weekly customers, monthly customers. And if you went there, you knew them, they knew you. And they were part of the experience.
Oh, no truer words.
I was going to say ambiance, but I
You're
don't
being
know.
kind.
but yeah, they really were, and I know they worked their customers. I'm sure they did.
Oh, sure.
And I'm sure they got a hold of the people that did the Elks Cookoff, and they were just perfect for that. And also, Steve Bowman really did go out and talk to a lot of people and raise a lot of money. But I do agree with Nancy.
She's the blue ribbon in all of this.
She's kind of the glue that's held it all together all
Well,
these years.
Bowman, when he was president, he would come to because it started out that Bill was president for like a year, maybe 2 years, and then he didn't want to be president. So Steve would take over as president, and then maybe it went back to Bill until finally you became president, I became vice president, then we flipped that around for a while. And anyways, but Bowman his day job was a Spanish teacher at Manchester High School. And he would come into the meeting and he would have this binder, this big, thick binder under his arm, and he'd set it down and he'd start handing out papers like we were in class. And we were just a bunch of Buellers. I mean, we
Right. Right.
we just kept talking, doing whatever we were doing. And I think he probably said Nancy made this stuff up. I'm not sure if he did or not, but I'll say that he did. But that was all Nancy right there too.
Yeah, the organization of the binder
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
what we need to do and protocols. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nancy's a woman after my own heart when it comes to systemizing processes. That woman can work an Excel spreadsheet like no other. I mean, no other. When you think back to the people that you've built friendships with just serving on that committee over the years and now both able to pass that torch on, you still help in some smaller ways maybe, and there are references, but think of the friendships you've made.
Todd, I think you'd agree. I mean, we've both been on a lot of different committees, a lot of different charities, but the Chili for Charity was just different. The meetings were almost as much fun as the actual event. I mean, we really had a cast of characters, and it changed a little bit over the years, but the core was there. And we would have some really intense conversations, some big disagreements, But we were building friendships during that period of time. And what you're saying, I think, is true. I think all of us still feel a little bit of a kinship and loyalty to each other.
Right.
And we certainly take pride in the chili cook-off because it was fun. It was fun. People wanted to participate. And we made a lot of money for the community.
You did. I think about other charity type of events, fundraisers. A lot of charities have fundraisers throughout Wabash County, and Wabash County in general is very philanthropic. I think we would all agree with that.
I agree.
This is the only charity event of this nature. And that is also, I would garner to say, has been around one of the longest continual in rain, snow, wind, heat, hail, name a weather. And you guys have had it there and who have had such great impact. Over the course of, you're getting ready to hit your the 22nd annual Chili Cook-Off is coming up in October, the third weekend. I think it's the 18th. Does that sound right?
Sounds right.
Yeah, 18th. And when you look back at the things that you've learned along the way, the teams that you've attracted, the showmanship of those teams, some of the rules that are applied. I know that I was involved when the stage collapsed at the Indianapolis State Fair. Todd, you were still, I believe, park superintendent at that time, and all these new regulations came out. So it is a good time, but this committee is also committed to the safety of not only the teams, the participants, but I know there's a whole lot of regulations you were constantly checking to make sure that the team's cooking were safe and the attendees were safe.
Yeah, the state fire marshal has a representative that walks through. There's a permit process that you have to go through the state. And it's not just it's basically for any kind of a festival now. You have to do that.
Stage requirements changed that year. I remember you actually held a meeting with the fire marshal to explain things to people. So over the years, you have some stats. I know that the organizer herself helped you pull some stats. Nancy was happy to get together some information of some record numbers. And
did she give you some?
She gave them to Todd, and Todd shared them with me, so I would have a copy of them with me just because this is pretty impactful to know. Between you both, we'll make it a quiz to see if you could answer these correctly.
I didn't bring notes.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Well,
do you have
they're
copies?
Your notes, Todd.
Oh, no. So Bob has the answers.
Yeah.
Bob has the answers.
I didn't make them. I just got them from Todd.
The same. I was so grateful that he thought to ask Nancy these things, too. You have, first of all, I want to clarify a few things. This committee is 100% volunteer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I want the listeners to know, whether you've attended or considering attending, the amount of time this committee puts into this event. You start meeting every other month, and then it's monthly, and then it gets weekly, and then I think it just becomes habit, right? Because you have you enjoy the company. Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
you enjoy the company, and there's so much that goes into it when you have somewhere between, we'll just say, 60 to 120 different teams cooking, and then you have thousands of people come. I mean, there's a lot of elements to it.
I mean, I never thought about the meetings as anything but having fun.
It wasn't just another meeting. You were like, oh, we've got a meeting tonight. See you then.
Yeah.
We're all happy to go
And
there.
I'm having dinner, and I'm going to have something to drink with my dinner. I'll be
First
home
drink was
late.
always on Bill, if I remember right.
Yeah. Yep. It was
So
always on Bill.
I think, because we always met on Thursday night, and of course, Bill, he set all that up. But I think Bill really just liked to have us there. Mm-hmm. A lot of it was, I think he just liked to.
That was his heart.
Slip to the back room, and
we were in his domain.
Yeah.
And chili was his domain.
Yeah, and but we could have done it a lot more efficiently than
a lot less of those meetings.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And
We
Bill had
always got
email.
stuff done, though, Todd. Throughout the madness, we always got stuff done.
That's right.
Oh, we did.
Which
You're
is
right.
amazing in and of itself.
We did, yeah. And Bill had email, but I think he did not know how to get to it, and his mailbox was full, so everything was just done at the meetings, and
Yep.
And
You just accepted that's just the way it was.
Oh, yeah.
That's why he gave you that first drink to keep you coming back to the next meeting.
yeah, it worked.
Do you know how much money total to date you have raised for charities?
Is this up to date what you got from Nancy? The report said when she sent this that the total amount raised to date had been over almost $800,000.
783, I believe.
783.
So
Yeah, that's the up to date.
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
through the 21st annual Chili Cook-Off. That is not a number to shake a stick at.
No,
So
and it's all local with one exception, which was we donated to a chili cook-off in Baghdad, wasn't
Yeah.
it, for our troops? A small donation, but all of that stayed in Wabash, all of it, 100% of the proceeds.
Stay in, and the committee is very thoughtful in allocating the funds that are raised because you want to make sure it stays within our county to support our nonprofits.
Right.
And you want to know that they're going to be good stewards of
Well,
of
we
those
had an
funds.
application process. It was fairly elaborate, and we would ask them, one, what are you going to do with the money? But two, we were also interested in how are you going to help participate in this? And I think participation was a pretty big factor. Some of those entities could not participate in a big way, but they did what they could. And so we would evaluate those on that. And sometimes I remember that we had several repeat customers. They weren't always each year, but they knew that if they kept with it and kept supporting
volunteering
the
and
program,
yeah.
exactly, that
Yeah.
their day would come again.
Yeah.
And I can think of several of those that we may have skipped a year. I don't know what Smitty. Remember the year we were doing the selection and Smitty's was not picked, and he's on the phone in the middle of the meeting talking to whoever saying, "We're out. We're out."
I always like, is Smitty still on the committee?
No.
Oh,
no.
well, how are we going to know what the color of the year is for sure?
I don't know.
I loved it. He would tell us, "Oh, this is the color of the year.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
hot.
the
guys.
hot color.
Hot. We can't keep it in.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
can't keep
Well,
it in."
Todd got Purdue colors in there one year, right under my nose, and and I'm walking around in these Purdue colors. And he says, "You know what colors those are?" I said, "Yeah, chili for cherry." He said, "No, Purdue." I'm like, "I don't like this shirt much anymore."
IU versus Purdue over
Yeah, that
here.
was good. That was sneaky.
This charitable event has supported over almost nearly 100 different charities, 87 total different charities over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was one
86.
event. I think that we contributed to Rowan when they were working on their park or one specific project. And some of these are ongoing entities that year in and year out. I mean, Honeywell, obviously a big part of the community. And I guess before we get too far, I mean, a lot of this only happened because, one, we had a community, as you said, very giving. We had people that did anything and everything they could to enjoy it. I mean, we had so much participation. And I think we had fun putting the thing together, but the day of, there was just absolute chaos and fun.
I want to know, has it always been decorated booths since the beginning? Like, where did that idea come from? Was it at the Cook-Off Bowman
Well,
went
that
to?
one, Mark Shelley and I, we started competing at the state at Idle George before this, and that was the big one then.
Okay.
And of course, our chili wasn't very good, so we decided shameless self-promotion would be our angle. So we had Dead Man's Chili, and we participated there for 4 or 5 years. In the last couple of years, we won, which qualified us to go to Terlingua, Texas, which we never did. But the showmanship was the one where I think that's where you could have the biggest variety and the biggest audience participation. I mean, we had the true hardcore Cassie and other people, but I think showmanship's kind of what brought the entertainment factor out significantly.
Yeah.
People invested a lot of time and money in those.
I agree.
A lot.
So that was since the beginning.
Very beginning.
2003, you offered that as an option.
I'm not 100% certain of that. I think Mark and I wore our shirts, but I think that might have been about as much showmanship as we had that year.
Yeah. And do you remember how many teams you had that first year?
I think there was about 25.
Sounds
Okay.
right.
So to start, you had 25 down at Paradise Spring. And then you kind of remember was just naturally grew as showmanship grew, as people were getting kind of understanding how this whole thing operates.
Well, the first one, I mean, as the park department, we just did the basic things that we did for any festival, you know, trash cans, trash removal, restrooms, barricades, picnic tables, you know, kind of walk through with the head person of the event and, you know, try to get a feel for what it is they're going to do and how we could help them.
And how are the tasters going to flow, traffic going to flow? You just don't know.
And there really wasn't any of that with the first one. It was kind of go down there, pick your spot. And so I don't remember showmanship being much of that.
It was a very small part, I think, of the first one.
Yeah.
I think beyond that, then it started to grow and became kind of what I thought was a fairly big focus where people were really taking and doing their best. We had some really creative stuff.
Do you have some that stick out to you that you can remember from? I mean, there's been so many where people do go above and beyond. Do you have some that stick out to you that you can recall?
You say be above and beyond, and that's kind of where after a few years we had to kind of put some rules in there about how high you could build up. And I think, like somebody was going to have a band, or did somebody have a band or something?
I think we nixed that.
We got it
but they
before
were
it
going
happened.
to have a band.
Yeah, and
all to win showmanship. I mean, they wanted to win.
You have to stay on your property lines. You have, even if the guy next to you didn't show up, you can't go over into that space.
And I think the first year, maybe two, was truly just a chili for charity. We experimented with a couple of things. I remember the bands.
Right.
For a short period of time, we get a flatbed trailer. We had a couple local bands.
But the committee brought in.
The committee brought in,
Right.
and they donated their music, I think. I think they might have got free beers or something out of it, but they donated their time. But it really was not contributing to the success of the program.
It was going to start turning into
a musical event
with chili, as opposed to a chili event with music. So we kind of just said, thank you.
But do you have favorites? Like, think back over some of
yeah.
those booths. What sticks out to you that you can quick recall? Like just
The Flintstones.
Yeah.
Keith Lackenfora.
And they didn't win. They got second place, and I mean, they were really good.
Yeah.
Kurt Mollett, he had K&M flooring, and he did Shagadilly carpet, and he won a couple years in a row. And then Spooner. Remember, they did Alice in Wonderland. Was it Alice in Wonderland?
Don't remember.
And they did Green Acres.
Oh, did they?
And they had like real animals.
Yeah,
and
I
did
do
you have to
remember
change
that.
the rules for that, or were they within there?
I don't know.
I think we might have looked the other way a little bit.
I think it was so funny. It was like
didn't we have a mechanical bowl one year? Wasn't that?
That was
Wabash
when Tandy and those.
Trendu and that.
Oh,
bunch.
Yeah.
You've had Pirates of the Caribbean themed booths before, Wild Wild West.
We had the consistent ones, Colts, which was D&B Body Shop.
Yeah.
Ford Meter Box always delivered with a really nice corporate display.
Yeah, brass kicking chili, right?
Brass kicking chili. They had a water tower, I think 1 year or maybe a couple of years. I mean, these were some pretty elaborate.
Ghetto Booty.
And they were from Indianapolis.
No, they're here.
Well, Ghetto Booty.
That's Melissa Weatherford.
Okay.
Yeah.
Melissa and Chris Weatherford.
Yeah.
And
they've been every year since the first year they signed up. Like, have they consistently cooked that you can recall?
They cooked a lot. I don't know if they cooked every one.
they cooked a lot of years.
They cooked a lot. They were a big part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are some really, and then there's some who take their chili very, very, very seriously. And so that leads me to my next question. Beans or no beans? What makes chili chili?
Depends on who you ask. The Cassie rules required no beans.
Okay. And
no fillers.
Cassie stands for?
Chili Appreciation Society International, I think.
Yes.
Are they international?
I think they are.
Okay.
That's the one that Mark and I did. That's who was behind the Idol Jorg in Indianapolis.
Okay.
And they had events all over the country. And again, the big one was in Terlingua. They were, I have mixed emotions about Cassie. They were a wonderful addition. Mm-hmm. Everything they brought was great. Sometimes they were a little particular about some of the things we wanted to do. We tried to honor their rules, and they did. If you competed in Cassie, you didn't have beans, and you did all those things. But I think sometimes we kind of had to just say, relax.
I witnessed your mixed emotions.
Oh,
that was part of the showmanship.
It was a little frustrating.
That was classic.
And you now have designated Cassie Way during the cook-off, and you put the Cassie people there. They are there to have their chili tasted
Yes,
correct?
they want to gather points throughout the year to qualify for the big dog Terlingua. And
Okay.
they'll probably do 5, 10, 15, 20 a year. Some of those folks are every
Oh,
weekend
yeah.
cooks. And they do take it very seriously. And Cassie Way was kind of a response to at least in my mind, when it was kind of getting a little bit of contentious at sometimes with what they wanted versus what we were trying to offer. And I remember finally said, you know what, Cassie, we're going to embrace you. You've got your own Cassie Way, and they really enjoyed that. I mean, they looked forward to that street sign we put down
And
there.
they don't require the space
Right.
because they generally do not cook that much chili.
A gallon or two.
They cook enough to, to hand in for a sample, to be taste tested, and then they give the rest away. But it's not the quantities that some people cook.
For it to be a sanctioned Cassie event, I believe we had to have a minimum of 15 teams.
Right.
And we never had a problem with that. But the vast majority were not Cassie. The vast majority of teams, I think, were showmanship. People love People's Choice. People's Choice was the big one. That's where people really went all out with audience participation. And I think that's the one people took the most pride in.
You talked a little bit, Todd, about the Cassie people have just make enough to hand a cup in. What
Right.
are they doing with their cup? Like, what's this? The cup of chili goes to be judged?
Well,
or?
there's a system for judging also. I mean, it's they send an official.
Oh, so Cassie sends an official Cassie chili tasting judge. It's not a local. It is somebody who is with their.
It could be if one of us was one of those officially qualified.
Gotcha.
But we had to bring them from out of
Like,
town.
what makes them, their palate is refined. It's
Or they
Well-
just agreed to do it and they know what the
they
rules
said
are.
yes.
Bob's a real judge, but he's not a real Cassie judge.
That's right. Clarification.
Yeah, taste is not important.
Just not-
They do though, Christine. They had a rule. They would have aroma, consistency.
Oh, you're kidding.
I mean, they would judge it based on a variety. I think there were about 5 factors they would base it on. Had a little scoring system, and they would stay true to that. Everything. And they'd take a spoon, and then they'd pass the cup around with separate spoons, of course, and try it. We had to have so many judges, and one year we had a ton of Cassie. We had probably, I don't know, Todd, 30 or so. We had to double. We had to find more judges that day. These weren't the people, the officials, but just people to judge it and do their own individual evaluation based on their
Gotcha.
criteria. And I remember scrambling that day, kind of pulling people out of the booth to go do a little judging for that.
And you have your Cassie, your traveling Cassie teams. They're in it for the points to get to Trilingua.
Yeah, Terlingua,
Terlingua. Where's Terlingua?
Texas somewhere.
Thank you.
Never been
Yes,
there.
somewhere in Texas. And then you have local teams who also can enter Cassie, correct? Which
Yes.
means no beans. Can it have meat?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Meat. Your typical
to have
chili,
meat.
just no beans, no pasta. You can have vegetables.
Has to be red, tomato based,
Red is yes.
not white bean
It's
chicken
a red
chili.
No, that's
which
not
is
a Cassie.
delicious.
It is. One of our first winners was it Honeywell Center, one with the white chicken chili.
Yeah.
One of the first years.
Yeah.
But that wasn't a Cassie. That was
Gotcha.
People's Choice.
So, but locals traveling Cassie teams in it to win it, as well as local also could submit Cassie.
We
correct?
had some locals that were really good Cassie
yeah.
cooks that
Yeah.
really did well and competed well.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of the name of the teams.
But, one of the things that they changed last year is that anybody now can enter their chili to be taste tested.
Oh,
That was a new,
I'm not following.
well, so if you were not a restaurant or if you were not Cassie, then your chili did not get taste tested.
oh, that's
True.
right.
That's right.
It was People's Choice.
I gotcha.
Now, starting last year, you have that option. If you want to get into that, you can have your chili taste tested.
And that's right, because it was a popularity contest with the People's Choice, and some of those said, look, we want to be judged on the content of our chili. And
But-
you're right.
But
What do they call that, Todd? So you've got your restaurant judging where there's
Open.
tasted. Is it an open or
I guess, yeah.
I think it
maybe
was
something
open.
like
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
I believe it's something you have to check,
On your
when you
form?
register.
It was on the registration
And-
form, and when having done the registration, That was one of those. We had to give them the cup and the specifications. And
But I think, there were like 5 years in a row that we had over 100 entries,
yeah,
team entries.
Cooking teams.
So the logistics at that time to try to taste test all of that, I mean, it's really a 4-hour event. And
It goes so fast.
it does. And the logistics to try to do that, well, that was another one of those things. Who's going to do it?
You mean having like if 100 teams cook, they all want theirs tasted by a judge. How are you going to have someone to be able to do that? So that's why you gave categories of restaurant would if you wanted that to be judged. Cassie, obviously, and now there's open to the public. If you and your buddies want yours judged, you can, but not everybody's has to be.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's the way I understand it.
Yeah, that's how I understand it.
And unfortunately, I mean, there's good and there's bad to that because the number of entries are not what they were before COVID.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think they had 65 entries last year.
Yeah.
So
That's still a ton of chili.
it's a lot of
It's
chili.
still a lot of chili.
it is.
I always
Yeah.
thought about the ideal was when we were around the 80
It was.
in terms of perfect amount. We could handle more, we could handle less.
Yeah.
But 80 was always kind of the
The
comfort
sweet spot.
zone. Yeah, sweet spot, I thought, for a really successful
Everybody
chili
could
cook-off.
stay on the north side of the tracks, and the flow was good.
You see these people who come from all over, thousands come to taste these chilies, and you see these people, or they're in like little ramekins. Are they like 4-ounce cups? Is that what?
2 ounce.
2-ounce cups, stacks, just like of all the chilies that they've tasted. Kind of like, can I get around to them all and keeping track? And some of the ingredients we've talked about beans, no beans, but you've had most unusual ingredient in your chili over the past few years, yes?
Yes, that was one of Smitty's. Smitty particularly loved that
Yeah.
category. What did we have? We had the shark,
Alligator, maybe?
alligator. I don't know. We did a
Moose.
variety of different things. I was.
Skunk, I think. Well, no, that's
No.
what's in your chili.
Well, that was the smell. It wasn't our chili, Todd. Thanks, though.
And I'm assuming that's something that they also marked on their form when they were submitting. Like,
That was
we're
a
gonna
category
use-
all
Yeah.
by itself.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's a category anymore.
Pumpkin. I've tasted some different mixtures of chili over the course of a couple of years. And then you also are paying attention to who's participated from the furthest away, yes? I mean, you talk
Well-
about Cassie traveling in, but there are people.
Nancy indicated we had Indiana, of course, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, Texas, Tennessee. I don't think that's all inclusive. I think there were a few others, but I was kind of racking my brain thinking about this today, and I can't come up with any other, but we had a really good turnout.
Yeah.
I was trying to do some research thinking about this on Idle Jorg, and you have to go back because they haven't done it since we started doing it. But I was going back in history trying to find out when they did it just to kind of get some bearings.
Were you in your time machine when you
I
were
was
back
on
in history?
Google.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
Yeah,
how you were
everybody's
getting there.
time machine, Google. And it was interesting because a lot of people, and I was impressed by this, there was some chat. A lot of people said, they don't do that, but Wabash has the largest annual chili cook-off east of the Mississippi now. And I mean, I was impressed by this random looking thing I was doing, and here was Wabash brought up in that context. People were looking to see what they were doing at the Idle Jorg, where they're not. But then other people started bringing up our contest, which was bigger,
Yeah.
frankly.
As you both know, my role as the tourism directors, we pay attention to where people are hitting our website to get information. And I would agree with you in the fact that that is one of our top hit events that's listed on our website. Annually, you can start seeing people are trying to check, when is this event? What are the details of this event? And so it is a huge attractor for people to come to the area. I know my daughter, she comes back. She grew up coming to it. She came back for it every year while she was in college. Now as an adult, she's coming back to it again yet this year because there's something that's very deep-rooted, familial, where you all feel like a part of her family almost. It's tradition, but it's deeper than that. for a lot of people who come every year and are connected to what that event can be for them.
And I will give Cassie credit in that regard too. It's a pretty community-oriented
The
kind
Cassie
of thing.
Cooks are.
Yeah, they get together. They look forward to seeing each other.
Yeah.
That's kind of a reunion for them. But you're right, and I think people are coming back to see, okay, what is new this year?
Yeah.
And virtually every year had something new, bigger, better. It was fun to see the creativity of people trying to impress the judges, the
Yeah.
showmanship,
The showmanship.
the people.
And the people. I think it's that crowd-pleasing people piece of it, too. You know.
Oh, I agree. But, you were asking us about how much time we spent, at the meetings and all this and that. And, the real heroes of all of this, you could talk about, well, we'll put Bill and Bo,
Yeah.
it was their baby.
The Godfathers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But after that, it's the people who have cooked chili.
Yeah.
And, they spent their money for the ingredients, for all the supplies they need. I mean, maybe everybody's got a turkey roaster in their garage. I don't.
Right.
I don't have anything to cook 10 gallons of chili in if I was going to do that.
And it's no small matter to cook it. If you want to compete in People's Choice, you had to have at least 6 to 7 gallons.
Yeah.
Just to be part of it.
And then the effort they go to with the showmanship is just unbelievable. And so, you can have committees and you can have cash donors, but if you don't have chili,
What is there?
exactly.
What is there?
Exactly.
And you both have told me this before. It's expensive, especially now, right? It is expensive if you're putting any sort of meat or beef in your chili. If you're not a restaurant, you have to cook it on site. So they're starting at the wee hours of the morning, a lot of times to start cutting and chopping and dicing to be down there. And then, just like you said, you recommend 10 gallons. And because it's grown, there's times teams run out in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's just
Frequently.
so
Yeah.
those who come back often know that they're really cooking more than 10 gallons of chili, more likely, right? You ask them at the very least to cook around
I
10.
think, I'm not sure what the application says now, but I think initially it was like 3 to 5, and then I think it might have went 5 to 7. I'm not sure about that.
3 to 5 is what it was originally. I don't know what it is.
But there's
now.
been people that have cooked 20 gallons of chili down there before.
Sure.
And
And have probably given out every last bit of it.
Yeah.
Because you're right. You're exactly right. Those teams adding not only the chili to taste, but also the showmanship component of it, the entertainment piece of it, and them really getting into it and enjoying the camaraderie amongst themselves overall makes it a really excellent overarching event that has led to almost $800,000 in funding raised for local charities. And when you think about what that total is like, that's a huge number. $5 at a time or $25 a booth, right? You're not charging $1,000 a booth. To put this into the listener's perspective, it's what, $25 or so to have a booth and $5 to get in if you want to taste chili.
It's a good.
Right.
It's a bargain.
That's it,
and you're
right?
It's we need volume and participation, and
So
that's, as
nearly-
Todd said, that's
Yeah.
the cooks,
Yeah.
the people that come down.
Yeah.
But there's also cash donors. I mean, there's a campaign,
Right. Like your habanero level sponsors that also
which is
sponsor.
$200, and there was
Right.
talk, about raising that. Well, that didn't go very far. It was like ask for what you need, or
That's right.
be conservative, I guess, and a
Right.
lot of times you get more than what you ask for, anyways.
Right, because they believe in it so much.
Yeah.
And because, again, other than the tasting cups and the spoons, there are a few supplies that the committee provides to the cooking teams.
Insurance.
Yes, great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Insurance. It goes back. The whole point is to put that back to doing good in our community.
Right.
That's the root of the event, is to see it doing good and doing well in our community and helping those
and
charities.
the charities that receive these monies are having a direct effect with the people that are participating, the people in the community. I mean, they know their dollars are staying local. They know they're going to a really good cause.
Yeah.
Could have been youth, just a variety
Health,
of things we've
wellness,
done.
specialty
Health,
projects.
education,
Yeah.
all those things. And we've tapped a bunch of different charities over the years. And I think the diversity of the charities, but in some way, shape, or form, everybody's been affected by what those charities do.
100%. And I think that's the other part that's easy to get behind, especially because it is a volunteer-led committee that says we're going to pour this all right back out. So thanks for pouring into us. We're going to pour it right back out. At some point, and I think it might have been in 2010 or 11, the Wabash County United Fund came to you and thought, how can we leverage giving together?
Were you the director then?
I was the
Yes,
director then.
that's right. It was a
and
good partnership.
that was a blessing for me. Then that's how I got invited to be on. You didn't want me before. I had to bring something to the
We
table.
didn't know what we were missing before, Christine. That's the problem.
I had to bring something to the table to get in with the cool kids. But my board president at the time actually was Parker Beecham, and he thought we could leverage United Fund's resources stronger and better with the chili cook-off. And that partnership, I still think,
It is.
is
Still
in place
going.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that has leveraged a larger gift amount too, correct?
Like 170,000 to date, I believe was what Nancy
That's
showed
right. So they've contributed. United Fund's leverage has and contribution has contributed 170,000 to that nearly $800,000 raised, with 87 different charities being supported. At some point, you had to become a nonprofit. So the first couple years, money's coming in. You're handing it right back out unofficially, right? And people aren't getting
We
those.
didn't maintain hardly anything in the bank account. I think we decided we'd keep a few $100 just to kind of keep the account active for the. Well, they probably still do that.
Yeah.
Very little is carried over from year to
Very
year.
little.
Yeah.
And the incorporation that was done by Joe Eddingfield, that was donated. The 501c3 was by Carrie McCarty and Metz. That was donated.
But
And
what was the decision, Bob, to do that? Was it because, wow, this is wildly popular and successful?
It was because I think we wanted to create an entity that would sustain beyond just the members. That we
Gotcha.
had something that was a standalone Chili for Charity, Wabash Cannonball Chili for Charity, not for profit.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't been to a meeting in a few years, but the folks that have been running it that I've seen are doing a wonderful job.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, they've picked it up and kept it going, because you get worried when some of the people that are there in the beginning kind of start to fall off. And then when we lost Bill, that was a big deal. We've lost several original members. And for a variety of reasons, people do other things, as did I. I have a younger family now, my grandkids, and I wanted to do different things. I wanted to cook again, and I didn't feel being on the committee and cooking was fair. Have you ever gone to a birthday party and the kid that has the birthday party wins all the prizes?
Right.
That's kind of how I felt being on the committee. I didn't want to win all the prizes and make everybody upset, so I thought I
Right.
better step down. And so that was the reason I did. But it was great.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think everybody that's come
Yeah.
followed in our footsteps, I think they're doing a great job.
I agree, yeah.
So,
Emily,
Todd,
I think of her as Ogden. I can't think of her last name. I watched
Emily
her grow up.
Overlander.
Yeah, Emily Overlander.
Actually,
she did a great job.
she actually, from time to time, was a server at
right.
Market Street when we were having our meetings.
And she took the leadership very
She
well. She
did.
did a great job.
Yeah.
Is she still? I don't know if she's still in charge of it now or not.
She's the president, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
good. It's in good hands then.
And
Yeah.
Todd, you don't go to the meetings anymore
I don't,
either.
no.
No. So does Nancy still go to those
Yes.
meetings? Does she?
The committee is, I think, our original people, so to speak. I think Wade and Julie are the only two people
They
still
still
on
go.
there. Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. I
Well,
mean,
I think that
so Wade Weaver, Julie Denniston, they are still the longtime standing attending those committee meetings.
Well, Wade really adopted that event like in the second year.
Yeah.
And has, the publicity that he's given that through the radio station, that has really been a big part of the success.
It was
So,
a significant
yeah.
part
And
of the success.
100% donated. He never charged for the live remotes that he does while he's there. So people who are listening in and can't attend or just want to hear what's going on before the gates open, you're right. Leading up to it, he has done that always in kind, correct? Not charged $1 back
Right.
to the committee. So he's not doing it for himself. He saw something in it. He saw something special.
And he's
in
been there from virtually.
The second
Jump.
year,
Is that what it
the
was?
year that it, rained, snowed, sleeted,
it. Yeah.
and that's
I really wasn't sure we were going to survive a year like that. And we've had windstorms and things. That was probably the worst one-day event that I
It
remember in
was.
terms of weather-wise.
But-
And it was still successful.
Yeah.
But well, Wade, that I did not know Wade until that day, and he was down there, and he had his motorhome down there, and it would start to rain or sleet or whatever, and he said, you're welcome to come on in here, if you want to stay dry. So I went in there with several other people, and then he would do like a remote, and
Like a live recording on air?
on air.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would do like and tell people how nice it was down there. and he wasn't actually totally lying, because the weather came in waves and it would clear up or stop anyways.
Yeah.
And more people would come, and then they would get down there, and then the next thing, the next weather event would start, and back in the motorhome and back on the radio. And it would be just enough time for more people to come before it started again.
Yeah.
And then in the end, the sun was out. So,
Ain't that just
and
the
then
way
it
too?
it raised almost $12,000 that year.
Yeah.
So I think after that year, it was like, I think there
All
might
the
be
way.
something here.
Yeah.
I think that
I don't think any of us thought it was going to last more than a couple years and have a good time, and that's fine.
I remember when Bill and Bo were talking to me at Market Street that first time. They go, we just think it'd be something fun, and maybe we can raise a little money for Shop with a Cop. That was who that money went to the first year. Maybe we can, maybe we can. There was no talk of a second or a 20-second, and I think if you would have suggested that, they would have go, I don't know about that, and
But I think after the very first event, the talk of a second was immediate.
oh, I agree.
I think
yeah,
there was some sense that maybe we're onto something.
I agree.
And
yeah,
this can really bloom.
yeah, and it's a pretty amazing thing.
It's almost hearing you both reminisce is always fun, because those were some
That's
really
what old people do these days, right, Todd?
reminisce and feel the sincere joy in what it did and has done and now is continuing to do for our community is symbolic. We have lots of guests on the podcast, truly, and it always comes back to community and people. You said it earlier. If we don't have chili and we don't have teams,
Right.
there is no event, right? And then if we don't have fun while we're doing it with this committee that's built a lifelong friendship with one another, it's harder to execute it.
And Todd, we're lifelong residents of Wabash. I mean, we grew up here, we went to the schools here. It's one of those that this is a community that this is what we do. People support the community. It's incredible. I mean, I'm very proud of Wabash, Indiana, for a variety of reasons, but the Chili for Charity is certainly one of the big ones.
In the roles you both have played, some of us have afforded the luxury to completely retire. Todd.
Are you completely retired
I
now,
am.
Todd?
He
Good
is,
for you.
100%. And then for yourself, who is still currently, I believe, still employed.
Yes.
They've not kicked
Yes,
you out
as far
yet.
as I know.
They keep voting you
If
in.
it's secret if they're working on it right now.
You think of the roles that you both played professionally up until recently. Todd did just recently fully retire in the last, 2 years? Is that right, Todd?
From
Weights and measures.
I still see
like
your name
3
on
months
those
or so.
tags.
I still
yeah.
see his name
Yeah.
every
no,
once in a while.
look for your
I
name.
just retired again in June.
Again. You both had very full lives. You still do, fuller now with family and kids and stuff like that. But you both still found the time to give back in a way that truly brought you joy and made some major impact. If someone has never been to the cook-off, what would you tell them to get them to come, other than
I guess I'd appeal to their sense of I like to have a good time.
Yeah.
I like people having fun.
Yeah.
We have had over the years, I don't remember we ever had a really bad incident. I don't remember anything that was catastrophic or we'd say, oh my gosh, we really dodged a bullet there. I mean, we certainly had our moments where somebody got a bee sting or somebody, and we had there, but I mean, it's one of those that I can't remember a single bad event happening. And I mean, if you want to come and just enjoy yourself,
it is fun.
and watch other people just enjoy themselves, and it doesn't cost very much. I mean, you can't get that kind of entertainment for $5.
It doesn't cost you anything.
If you don't want to
just watch the crowd.
Yeah,
you want to walk around.
You're welcome to come. Encourage you to come. And
so $5 gets you a collector's spoon.
Yes.
And that's what you used to. Your collector's
and a cup if you want to take it home.
And a cup. Or a stack of them. A stack of them. You're right. It is so much fun. Family friendly. If you want to bring the kids down.
Sure.
And because it's usually over, awards are at 3:00.
2 to 3. Yeah.
Does that sound about right? Gates open at noon.
Yes.
And it's always been $5 to get in, correct?
Yes.
Never in all these 22 years has it ever shifted from beyond $5. So $5 at a time plus some booth space, reservation space.
And we went to a breakfast before ours a long time ago, and I did some math and figured, okay, if you've got X number of teams, you're getting 2 ounces of chili for $5. You could get over a gallon of chili, which is more than you need, more than you want. But I mean, it really is a value if you're willing. But you don't feel like you're waiting in line because you're talking to somebody or you're looking around and watching what's going on. And you're right about kid friendly. We had a lot of support for the kids' activities down there.
Yeah.
Again, Honeywell, MELC, a lot of different entities stepped up and made it a very family fun event.
It can be, for sure, if you want to, or not. You can make it a date day, an afternoon date day if you want to. Todd, anything you would tell somebody who hasn't been yet? What are they missing out on, other than alligator, maybe? Alligator chili?
I would say stay away from the dead man chili.
You would say that. You're still jealous. But that's okay. I like that.
No, but it's a unique experience. A great time of year.
Yeah.
It's a rain or shine event. And
sometimes the most fun happens when it's not the shine, too. You know?
So,
I have some favorite memories in my limited time I still volunteer a very small role. I show up and do what Nancy tells me to do the day of, but I have some favorite memories. As I came in onto the committee for a short while, there are some traditions that you all have that I quickly felt welcomed into. So the night before, you all will get together as some of the teams maybe are doing some figuring out where the booths are going to be. You're making sure that people can load in actually the night before, correct?
the day before, yeah.
The day before. So you were all are down there making sure if they need to have questions where they need to go, making sure they're following fire code. If they have a propane tank, it's to their stake and everything. And so it's really neat to see.
That's kind of the calm before the storm, too. That night before has been a lot of fun. I think we sit down and think, you know, tomorrow's a big day, but all the work has really been put in place. And we did it every year.
Oh, yeah.
In the campfire in the big cabin. And that was one of the things I really looked forward to. And the morning of, the quiet right before everybody starts cooking, and then the smell of the smoke, and that is amazing. And from that to about 3 hours later when it's just packed.
Yeah. And you and Chris would do the early check-in, you know?
I liked registration because it was an awful job, but it was done very soon. And so it left me free to just enjoy myself the rest of the day.
Yeah. And just to see, you're right, that calm before, the way the committee celebrated the efforts of the year to get to that day, excited to see what the showmanship, the booths were going to look like, who was going to travel in and cook, what the attendance was going to be like. And then I know that you've enlisted the help of the Boy Scouts in years past to help clean up. Some food trucks in the middle there that want to be there if someone wants to get something to go along with their chili tasting. But there are some really funny moments that I think back and I laugh hysterically about, other than just the times Girding would always remind us to tip our servers, because that was his generous heart too.
Oh, yeah.
You know, looking back and seeing. I can't thank you both enough for what you both have done for this community in small ways and big ways.
Labor of love, right, Todd?
It's been an extreme honor to be involved in that.
You were with the Parks Department for 33 years, is that right?
For 37.
37 years. And how long have you been judging people?
All my life. It's now a job for about 21 years. But I got to work with Todd as city attorney for 14 years.
Prior to you being our...
Yeah, so I've had the pleasure of working with Todd. He is, bar none, one of the best people we've had in this community. I mean,
I agree.
Are we
I'm
about
honestly,
done here?
I'm honestly, I think he deserves that because Todd's done a wonderful job. And the logistics, I mean, we had GPS programming towards the end where all the booths were lasered in. And I mean, people knew where they were going. They had a stake in the middle.
Well-
it's a very impressive operation.
We had a lot of people come to us unsolicited that gave us things that we needed. I remember Steve Gill worked, well, it's now Republic Services. He worked for that trash collection company. And I ran into him one time after about the third one where the trash cans were unbelievable
Yeah.
to keep emptied. And he goes, hey, we can donate trash cans the totes, we can donate those if you want. And I go, well, how many? He goes, well, how many do you need?
Wow.
And they've done it ever since. The bathroom situation that the third and fourth years, especially for the ladies, you just, huge lines and they would overflow. And Greg Harnish, who was on the fire department at that time, he also had a plumbing business and a porta pot business. And he goes, hey, I'll donate like 10 porta pots if you want. Perfect. He did that until he sold the company. Brian Campbell, who came on the committee probably the last 10 years or so, he worked for Randall Miller and Associates, and we were just kind of using a hand-drawn map that I think you gave out at registration. So they had to take that map and they couldn't orient it,
Yeah,
Oh,
it was
like me?
hand
Where are we
drawn.
now,
It was
And-
hand
Over
drawn.
there.
Well, it was, yeah.
Yeah,
and I
sure.
had their, the number of the sites, and they had to go find that site. Well, Brian said that, they've got the software that they could just create that site and produce, a very nice, I don't know.
Like a plotted.
Yeah, it was
printout?
probably 3
Looked
by
like
3.
a subdivision being planted.
Probably
Oh,
3
yeah.
by 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Nancy, she went to work and, did all the booth numbers and assignments and put underneath it. So people could just come down there and find their spot so much easier. But those are the kind of things that people came to us. And that, I think, is just something about that event where just so many people just
But that's a reflection
gave so much.
But that's a reflection of your hearts too, right? So they see what you're also doing, pouring into it. But I think that's also true to our community. What do you need? Or they'll step up and say, I've got this that I think would benefit you. How can I help you?
Yeah.
And that is something I think that is woven through the fabric of who Wabash
I
County.
think that's what makes us unique.
It's different. It's the people. It really is the people. I hear over and over again from people who visit, who want to know why and how we're able to do what we do. How can we be the largest chili cook-off east of the Mississippi River? And that list of accolades.
You mentioned
is
that
long.
because we helped other communities.
Well, did
Peru
we?
came to us. Remember? I mean, they came and they wanted to model. We had no problem letting them sit in on the meetings, but nobody's ever been able to duplicate it.
No. I always wondered what they went away with from our meetings.
It worked for us. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Very, very, very well. Very well.
Well, great. Thank you for doing this.
I'm glad to have you both. Really, truly, though, I want to say this. Thank you both for what you have done. Those who are coming after you have learned from you. And they're able to carry on that torch because something resonated with them that's meaningful and that's deep. And so thank you both for pouring into that for so long and setting it up for the next generation. We are a community that does give and does support. Programs like our podcast is made possible by really...
Podcast. I thought it was an oddcast.
No.
Which is
Well,
why Todd and I are here.
You are oddcasts on the podcast.
Okay.
But I do want to thank the people that make it possible. So this podcast is supported by the Lisa Gilman Investment Fund, Sandy Kunkel Trust, Mark and Amy Ford, Paperworks Industries, the Community Foundation of Wabash County, the City of Wabash, and of course, Visit Wabash County. They make this podcast possible in this space so that we can tell the stories like yours and the Chili Cookoff to share.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Alrighty. Until next time, I'm Christine Floor, and this is Thrive in Wabash County.